Hey everyone, Ariel Adams here with the Superlative Podcast. I want you to check out the other aBlogtoWatch podcast, aBlogtoWatch Weekly, where we talk about the latest news. My guest today on Superlative is designer Mo Coppoletta. Mo, welcome.
Thank you for having me, Ariel. It's a great pleasure. I'm at my parents' house in Italy, so I have this set up for today, which is
it's lovely.
Yeah,
it's lovely.
Nice.
It's funny you mentioned that because that goes into one of the things I wanted to ask you. I love having designers on the show because I am such a fan of what a designer really is. It's such a simple term for such a complicated thing in the watch industry. Yeah. But these are the individuals who make the products look like what they do. And without them looking like what they do, we wouldn't have the emotions towards them. So I love delving into the very diverse backgrounds. And one of the things that I always find amongst many designers is they grow up around what I'll call beauty. They didn't choose it. They just happened to in some way grow up around beauty, maybe a lot of beauty. And so I guess I'd like to know from you, what types of things did you grow up around in Italy, I might imagine, but talk about some of the beautiful things that you think really inspired you.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because as you were introducing this topic, a lot of things came through my mind. My dad was, and still is to an extent, an antique dealer. My mom a tailor. So, you grow up amongst things, collectible things. Your aesthetics shapes constantly by your surrounding, by the conversations you have, by even if you don't know it. I pursued quite a different career at the very early stage of my life. So, but to some extent, aesthetics always been present. Strong aesthetics, whether they're classic or a bit more avant-garde, but you have shapes and lines and volumes, and that cannot contaminate your mind. As you wear
it has an effect.
It has an effect, even if you want it, if you don't want it, you go and pick it up from your mental library that you have, whether it's conscious or unconscious, and you go pick up some suggestions. That's why when you were talking about designers and watches, we could open a chapter that we could never end here, because what sold watches, apart from the mechanical heart, it has been all the time the aesthetics. The Royal Oak is the Royal Oak because of his design. The Calatrava is the Calatrava because of his design. And even the most technical
But Mo,
watches,
go back further. 15th century. It was about aesthetics then too. Maybe even more so than
Cosmo,
today.
the stars, the automaton. If you go to the Valais de Joux, if you go to the museum, it's all aesthetics coupled with incredible. It has been like that for cars. It's been like that for motorbikes. Aesthetics is very important, and that's why sometimes I find myself. I don't just design in the watch industry. I do all different things. But in the watch industry, which I'm very close to because I'm a big fan to start with and a collector, the design aspects at times, it seems like not marginal, but it's part of it, but it's not necessary. I think quite the opposite. There should be an award like they do for interior design. There's a Compasso d'Oro. There should be an award for the most daring design, whether it's been endorsed by a brand and pushed or not. But there should be every year an award to the most daring design or beautiful design or clever design. Because design, if we don't stop and value design as it should, we can't scrape back on the back archives for the next 50 years. There's never going to be a new Gerald Genta, a new Gilbert Albert, if we don't award the new designers, and there's plenty of talent out there.
Absolutely. And I think design is itself something to boil down, because when it says you're a watch designer, sometimes it's difficult to know what that is. As far as I know, you're not a watchmaker. I'm not a watchmaker either. But you're someone who has a couple of successful projects. Talk about, boil down some of the core skill sets you have. I think you obviously, you're a tattoo artist.
Yes.
You're an illustrator, I imagine. What are the core mechanical skills that you have which contribute to your ability to design things?
Well, the thing is, I think, designer is such a broad term as you just underlined. I think at some point, designer is a skill. Is a skill. I mean, it's like being a proficient guitar player. Are you a composer too? Can you write a song? That's when your taste comes into play. So you need those tools in order to convey your idea. A designer who cannot draw is not a designer. It would be like if Jimi Hendrix couldn't play the guitar, but he had just the tune in his mind. You need to be able to play that thing in order to convey your taste. Yeah. At the end, a good designer just provides his suggestions, his taste, his take on things. He has to have a set of tools, which is the designer tool, the draftsman's tools, the visual capacity to put down onto paper his vision. But in order to convey what's more important than just the technical ability to be able to draw anything. If you get a good draftsman and he doesn't know much about watches, he can be the most amazing artist on the planet. But if he doesn't have that sensibility, he can hardly come out with a viable, beautiful watch design or car design or skateboard design or whatever you want. So you need both. But at the end, I think you convey your feelings. It's like a piano player. It's like a composer. So being a designer is much more than being able to draw correctly. It's the idea that comes into materialization at the end.
I boil it down to two things. First, you have to know beauty and have what I call a vision of beauty. This idea in your mind of something that would be beautiful. Then you have to have at least some tools to communicate that to the other people that are required to build it or execute it or something like that. Unless you, with your own two hands, can paint it or sculpt it or somehow manufacture it.
Absolutely.
But it's that idea phase and then that communication phase, which I think is built into every single designer, no matter what their specific skills are.
Of course, there's in design, in industrial design, it's a brutal term because we don't want to see our dear watches as an industrial design, but it's more like we're selling dreams here. It's not a coffee maker, a coffee machine. At the end, there's also another element that differentiates a more artistic approach to an object, which is the back and forth with the technical department, being able to convey, being able to read what you're doing. And always keeping in mind that if you are designing a dial, it needs to perform as a dial, unless it's a very historiated dial where you paint some, but that's different. I'm talking about strict watch design and case. The case, it has to have a functionality. It's a functional design at the end because you wear it. You don't just put it on the mantelpiece. You can be more liberal, more artistic on a marble and brass and engraving piece for your desk, for a desk clock on the wrist. There are constraints, there are things, so you need to know what's happening. The bezel, the insert, the case back, the glass, how domed, not domed, how it reflects inside. Materials, how the sun and the light hit different materials, the finishing. So yes, but also bearing in mind that at the end, has to be worn, has to be cool, has to be go. Even another bad thing I'm about to say with the current or maybe the trend that's coming in. It was big watches, there's more watches, than thin watches, than thick watches. So, all this sensibility when you get given the task to create a new watch has to be taken into consideration. Where are we going? What's happening? What is the response of the last 20 years of the watch community? What was trendy 10 years ago in the 90s? And then what brands went out of favor? What other came into favor? It's enormous. It might seem simple as a two-hand watch in the case. It's not.
No, and I think one of the biggest risks is that when you start a project, it inevitably takes a few years in the watch industry. And so you're not only trying to figure out what people will want, but you're trying to figure out what people want sometimes 3, 4, maybe 5 or 6 or 7 years into the future.
Absolutely.
And that becomes a gambling risk because you're putting real money behind it. And if it doesn't make enough money to recoup your costs and at least pay for another round of innovation and design, then you're stuck. And so if you want to continue exploring the idea, You have to be practical and have to have marketable items.
And that, again, contaminates all that beautiful approach about beauty and lines that we had before. You need to be aware and you need to be contemporary. You need to be actual with hopefully, the skill to just slightly foresee what's happening. So, because at the end of the day, it's a commercial endeavor and it needs to perform as such. Because whether you create something incredibly, to your taste, beautiful, somehow the performance, the commercial performance and the acclamation that you have from your peers, the industry, is very important after that. Because we've seen many attempts like that with an absolute enormous amount of commercial might from brands that fail. And, and so probably they thought it was the greatest thing ever, but then the reception was lukewarm, or other things. They started just like that, and then they caught up, like, so all these things put together, that's what makes a designer, I suppose, is that broad term that we have used ever since the beginning.
Mo, where do you go to try to figure out what people want? It's one thing to know beauty. It's another thing to know what other people are going to desire. And they don't always want beautiful things. How do you investigate culture to try to determine what groups of people are going to be interested in? I
go out a lot. I don't stay at home. I don't. My social, I go quite busy-ish social life. I'm out. So far, Ariel, I've been so blessed because everything I've been asked to design, it's something that I was either a big fan of, a customer of. I do a lot of design for drinking industry, but I've been on this side of the counter for 35 years. I've been to bar, into thing, into clubs. So I know what the watch is the same thing, branding, same thing, chandeliers or jewelry, same thing. I've collected, I knew, I investigated, I talked to people. So I'm always on this side of the bar counter, whether it's bar.
So it's easy to design because you're essentially one of the customers. So you're basically designing for yourself.
I am. So I think you have to do it for yourself, bearing in mind what we said today, but don't try to see just do the best you can, what you would like to see. And if somehow your taste is recognized by other people, you will find a connection straight away. I've been asked a lot about, starting with a new brand, but if you start from what the market wants, you're out. There is an artistic input that you have to infuse this new product, this new object, this new watch chandelier with an awful amount of yourself. Bearing in mind, of course, you can't be and then you go out and see what the reaction is. Starting from, let's do a round and see what the customer wants. And one of them, good luck. You need to put your money where your mouth is. You need to stay there, and you need to know somehow what the sensibilities are. Because again, you sell and you try to convey something that is intangible. It's not, you can't put real value to that. It's emotions. So, you have to play with those things. You need to be on top of them as much as you can.
I'm really glad to hear that that's the way you do it, because that's probably the most successful way I've heard of, is to just actually, as they said, hit the streets, see what people are doing, observe,
and put your money there. Because fail, start collecting. You fail, then you understand. And if you understand it, if you understand it on your skin, you understand it much better.
So what we see sometimes, which is sort of beautiful but also tragic, is when somebody puts a lot of money into an object that they and only they want. In fact, sometimes they go out of their way to make it so personal to them that it's actually bad because no one else understands it. And this is a fallacy, that if you make something that you like, that's good. But if it's so personal to you and you expect other people to want it, that's a huge risk. So make it nice to your taste, but don't make it so specific to your experience that when no one else sees what you see.
Exactly, but that you need to be social even when you design, because otherwise you are that artist under the bridge that you're gonna get famous when you die, and that's another thing. That's art. That's a completely that's another thing. You can do that, but you don't design a product that's going to be viable to the market. That's another thing. It's different nuances,
So one of the reasons that we're chatting right now is that your most recent project was for one of your clients, Gaga Milano, and their new sub-brand, Gaga Laboratorio, and this interesting new watch that they came out with. Now, I noticed, and correct me if I'm wrong, you didn't just design this watch for them, but you also sort of did the whole branding. And I wonder, how do you get involved at that high of a level where you're doing not just a product, but the company behind it? I mean, this is multiple layers of thinking about it. This is, I mean, of course, this is high level stuff. This is what you do, but not all clients want that. How do you get involved in such a project where you have so much control, but also so much responsibility?
Well, that's exactly why, because the responsibility and the challenge was so intriguing. I mean, I have done branding for big reputable brands, which is not just the logo, the brand, but now we call it, it's like designer. The branding is another thing. Even there, you need to convey, it's not just a set of logos to be used on different supports and platforms.
The whole personality.
The colors, the nuances, the thing. So this, when Ruben asked me to do it, first of all, he told me the positioning. And I think at the moment, Ariel, the sector between 2,000 and 5,000, say, Swiss francs, is the most creative. I mean, I'm not here naming all the Furlamari, the Space One, the Louis Erard, all of the. In that segment, you see creativity pushed to the limit because of the times we're living. People are probably slightly fatigued in bombing, God knows how much in every watch. They want something fresh, innovative, and cool from the design perspective. So that, because at the moment I have another 2 or 3 watches of a very high caliber coming out in the next 12 months. Big,
congrats.
Big, complicated watches for brands. But it was very challenging. I said, yes, I want to play in that field because I think it's very cool. And Ruben said, but I don't have anything. I said, can you give me the chance to have an overlook at everything? He said, it's all yours. Do whatever you want. And it's gigantic because you start thinking that you have 10 assets to look after and then they turn into hundreds. So not only the logos, the brand identity, but also the communication, the setup of the picture. We did a short movie with our ambassador, and I directed that, wrote the text. I told them how I wanted it, and I went through all of that on top of designing the product, the fantastic box. I think I'm so proud of that box. The box, the watch box is just a beautiful little object. The outer box, all the gadgets and the extra accessories that come with it. So the tags, the this and that, the little warranty pouch at large. And I couldn't say no because I was like, let me put a bulk like that into my portfolio and let's make this as cohesive as possible. There's nothing worse than designing something that you think you hit the nail, and then it's coupled with either a campaign or a set of accessories designed by somebody else, or they were there already in the stock room. And you go like, oh, come on, with a little bit of effort, we could do that little. When you go into a Vuitton shop and you buy the bag, it's not just the bag, but it's the outer box, it's the inner box, it's the rice paper, it's the ambience, it's everything that you're buying. We're selling emotions here. It doesn't take, let's finesse, a bit more finesse. I think it's very important. So that what pushed me to say, yes, let's do it because it was gigantic, but it was fantastic. I'm very proud of that.
When you were doing some of your other watch projects, I think the very first time I heard your name was actually when Emmanuel M. was running Romain Jerome. And then I remember there was this Bulgari watch that was interesting. When you worked on those projects, did you think to yourself, I want to do it all. I want to do the packaging. I want to do the branding. I want to do the logo of the brand. Did you have those aspirations then when you were doing some of those early projects? And there's probably other ones as well. Or more recently did you realize, yes, I actually could do the full stack of things that goes into this product?
Absolutely. Every time I design anything, watches in this case, I always push for more, whether it's accepted or not. I mean, for the Romain Jerome, Manuel, funny you mentioned Manuel, is a dear friend, and he's the one who, in a way, brought me in. I was a big fan of watches, and at that time he said, like, do you want to apply some? And on top of the watch, I've designed a certificate there, and then I directed an animation movie, a 5 minutes animation movie with an animation company, where I
remember that. I didn't realize that was you as well.
I designed every frame of that movie, and we put them together. And so you see, with Bulgari, of course, it was slightly more. The bigger the brand you work for, the more compartmentalized they are in the different aspects of the. But at the same time, we customized the boxes a little bit. No, at that point I didn't have any ambition to change the Bulgari logo, but it's fine as it is. But yeah, I always try to provide more, because once you are flowing and your ideas are coming in, because I'm very descriptive and I'm very, in a way, semantic and symbolic in what I design, that overcome the boundaries of just what you have to design, and they go into all the different objects. Even if you think a watch is not just a watch, as I said before, a watch is a strap, is a buckle, it's a certificate, it's the literature inside, it's the box, it's the outer box, it's the rice paper, it's the padding thing, is the experience, and these days it's the communication, the visual on Instagram, the quick short stab of communicating, the storytelling, very important. So how can I stop just in doing that? I mean, if you let me scratch, I'll scratch until there's nothing else more to explore. So I'll carry on until you tell me to stop.
Where did you learn what you know about branding and digital media? Because you seem to intuitively understand how companies need to convey their brand in the digital world. A lot of people still don't quite get it. Obviously, you started your career before all this. Where did you learn what you did? Because obviously, I think a lot of your success has to do with the fact that you did learn this stuff and you do understand branding in the digital age. Again, where did you learn those skills?
Well, I think I'm a big fan. It started, this is the first step, big fan of fonts, lettering, crest.
Oh, me too. Total typography
nerd. The Victorian signs, the pub signs, the company signs, how they evolved throughout the decades and the centuries. I dwell in the past a lot, not because I want to be redundantly retro, but I want to take those hints, those suggestions from the past and actualize them as today. So back in the past, the visuals were even more important than today. The sign, just to make a grocery store sign, it was an art form. And that communicated. The brand logos and how beautiful were they. And you saw gradually this homogenization of the logos on black, where the fonts became more simple, to a point where the Yves Saint Laurent logo or whatever of the 70s, it was Yves Saint Laurent. Now you have to read whether it's that or Balenciaga, if it's another one, because they all use the same fonts and things. So people, either they scratch the surface and they study, or otherwise, like today, they just want to be hit by quick, short messages that strike some chords and then they act. Because, knowing what you like requires a lot of study, and not many people want to do it, or they don't have the thing. I mean, refining your taste, you can have it a bit, but then you need a lot of study. You need to keep on researching and study to really know what you like and what's good, what's not, like everything in life. You can't just delegate to your PA to dress you up. You have to know what to do. That's an example. But it's very important. I mean, a very short conveyed message that is perfectly crafted. And look at all the advertising up until the 80s, the short movies, the ad campaign, the Americana, the ephemera phones and all that. I mean, they were powerful as religious iconography. so powerful. The Coca-Cola logo, the this, that logo, the Michelin logo, the little... So all of that, in that universe, it taught us a lesson that you need to convey something to the viewer or to the... whether he wants to stay on the surface or he wants to scratch and dig deeper. So very nice, straight, understandable, visual messages are important for anything, from a handbag to a watch to this to that. Not to make it too cheesy if it's a watch. A watch is a very important, expensive, serious thing. It's not fun. It is fun, but it's not funny. It's not it's not stick of gum. It's different. It's different product. A car is different from a bag. To all the different amount of seriousness or fun, or it depends. It depends. It's a big thing. But the message, once you study and once you dissect it, it needs to be on point with what you're trying to tell.
I'm going to thank you. That was a great response. I'm going to try to dissect that to see if I understood correctly some of the main points there. But what I hear is that prior to the internet and all that, you were someone who was interested in messaging, especially the power of the word and the actual letters. So not just the statements, but the way that they were actually drawn out had power. And I independently, in my own sense, came to that. I was always obsessed with letters and fonts and things like that. Many people in our space definitely are. And then when the internet came out, it was the exact perfect place to see the outcome of your interest, because people's attention spans are so low, words and the way they're written have to stand out. So it was sort of like this weird manifestation of this thing that you loved, and that's why you paid attention to it, because you sort of were accidentally already into that theme.
Absolutely. But, I think then that the internet universe and the brands and the branding, this is a complete another talk, how the brands are managed and whatever. They strip down that message so much now that it's all the same. Stripping it down because people don't pay the attention span, as we said. They don't dwell in front of a pub enjoying that beautiful Capitol gold-gilded sign. But their logos had such an importance up until the 80s. Brand logos. You didn't even need to read the logo. But then there was this last 20 years of trying to strip them down to the bare bone so much that they lost the charm. They became so clinical that you recognize them, but you don't dwell on them to say, oh, what a beautiful logo, because they've been stripped down too much. I think this operation of make it simple so they understand it better went slightly over. Need to bring it back a bit.
So I have a theory on this. I agree with you, but sometimes I just look at it and it looks like it boils down to money. Like if they just put more time and money into it, they get more out of it. I see companies trying to do things as cheaply as possible. I see them using like math people to make creative decisions. The metrics people, those are math people. They're to make emotional decisions, like creative decisions. That'll never work. So what I see is a lack of genuine investment in the creative like they need. It's not that they don't agree with you. They're just like, yeah, we don't want to spend that money. I think that's all it is.
It is like that. And sometimes, you know what they do, what happens also, and that's the day. There are those 3, 4, 5, 6 reference agencies that are given the task to create something incredibly new for this enormous amount of money, and they have to justify the result, which is a simple result, with God knows what sort of, roots and trips and mood board they came to boil down to that stick.
The confidence building metrics.
Come on. It's 10 minutes job. It's a 10 minutes job.
What I say is it's just like the movie industry, right? If the movie industry knew the metrics to making a successful film, they would. They try all they can, right? They want to make money, but at the end of the day, they can't quite predict it. And it's the same thing with a watch or another project. the best you can do is get an investor to believe that it's be successful. The people that make the movie, they all think it's going to be amazing. They all want it to work.
They wouldn't want to create something unsuccessful, right? In their own mind, they think it's the best thing they've ever created.
So what I say to those investors is, don't tell me to tell you the future. I'm trying to show you why this is a good idea and why you should be excited about it. If you want to invest in something, well, this is a fun thing that a lot of other people want to succeed. We can't offer you more than that.
May I, pardon me if I'm going to sound a little bit, not harsh, but,
please.
Our watch industry, amazing. If you think about the sort of investments that's been done in the last 20 years of Eldorado in everything, from marketing, receptions, you name it, flights, this and that and the other. Every time lately the big brands want to re-release something, they scrap back on the back archives from the 60s, 70s. Some brands, they just rely on that. All I'm saying is, my personal opinion, if you take 10 designers around the world, pick the designers you want, every brand, and you say, listen, this is an infinite part of what we threw away the last 20 years. As a token to you, I'll give you 6 months. Go wild. Come back to me with something. I guarantee you that each designer will come back with stacks of ideas. Go through them, pick the one between the millions that you have, pick the one that you really believe in, put your mic behind it. That's how you create a new Genta, a new Gilbert Albert, a new line, a new this, a new iconic thing. But it seems like that this very cheap operation for them, it's a very cheap operation, come on, it's never done. The creativity aspect.
Because they don't want to take risks. You need to have AI running those companies. What you're saying, couldn't agree more. You're speaking wisdom and truth. But ultimately, someone there needs to roll the dice, and someone there needs to be like, let's do it. Because as you know, in Europe, the stigma for what is perceived as business failure is harsh.
Yeah.
In Hong Kong, you go bankrupt, 3 years later, you're like starting another business. In America, it's like 7 years. I think in Europe, effectively, it's never, right?
Never.
So there's so much penalty for not having a hit. And today, the expectations are that you make a watch, it sells out in like, a few days or a few months. It's supposed to take a few years.
Yeah, but
it's
if you
supposed to.
Exactly. But if we think like that, the Royal Oak would have never been created.
Never. 25 years it took.
Tank,
minimum. 25 years.
Any Cartier tank or anything like that, the crash, those were daring. I mean, when those CEOs they believed in their product and they pushed it, this will never happen again. And that's why, you can scratch in your archives as much as you can, but.
So we have to usher in a new era. So in the pre-quartz time, the watch industry was run by factory leaders. Then when it turned to a luxury industry, for a brief period of time, it was run by real creatives. Then when the corporate interests got in, it started being run by bankers. And that's where we are right now. We have to somehow give the creatives, the crazy people who said, wait a minute, nobody needs watches to tell the time. No one's buying these as tools. Best we got is they can be beautiful and be kind of like jewelry and captivate the heart. And because we don't know what captivates the heart, we need to hire those men and women that do. That's what a few more companies need to decide.
There should be an award. There should be a GPHG award.
You need to start it.
This should be an award.
The GPHG is not going to be it. We don't even cover that because it's not about that. It's horrible.
It's okay. We're just talking.
Yeah, no, but that's okay. This industry doesn't need to be so scared like this. See, you're talking about taking risks, and yet you're afraid of someone claiming, "Oh, Mo, you're being so negative." That's okay.
It's okay.
That's
but
okay.
You have to fail in order to get that big hit. No one just gets big hits.
That's why. And that's why the sense of humor is healthy, right? Because it's failure with laughter.
Of course. Absolutely.
I want to go back to the Gaga Laboratorio,
sure.
the Labormatic watch. Tell people what they should be thinking about, some of the things that you were inspired by when you came up with it. Obviously, this is a case adapted from what the brand had, but there's a very specific aesthetic here in a time and a place. I want you to describe what you see in your mind when you see the final product.
Well, you see, there was a certain amount of legacy that Ruben wanted to retain in order to make the transition smoother. I remember that Gaga Laboratorio has nothing else to do. It's got nothing to do with Gaga Milano, but it's a brand new project. The fact that we kept part of the name was because there was an emotional attachment to what was an incredible success commercially. So I was like, okay, we can work with that. In terms of a product, there are some traits like the suggestion of the lugs, the crown of 12. They were the let's say, very distinctive, which gave the Gaga Milano a lot of personality. Apart from that, I took everything apart. And forgot completely about what I saw before and started new. The main idea was, since Gaga Laboratorio is in Milano, and the suggestion, the most positive and beautiful time in Italian history was the post-war, post-Second World War, with the economic boom, where all those objects were created, from Smeg fridges to food processor to the Lambretta scooters to fans to a little record player. To the design was just outstanding, with these metal moldings, with this beautiful color palette. So I wanted to recreate, and given the commercial positioning, all those objects weren't just objects just for the few rich people, but they were aspirational objects that everyone with a little bit of effort could have. If they saved enough, at the end of the year, they could get a Smeg fridge. So the television sets, the Lambretta scooter, the Golden Special, the PX from Vespa, they were aspirational. They weren't cheap for everybody, but they were for the lower middle class. So given its positioning, I was like, let's create an aspirational watch that gives you so much in terms of design and beauty and suggestions of that era, contextualize it and make it actual for today. So that was the main thing. Obviously, he told me, can you design something that its perceived value when you hold it is much greater than its actual price? But, everyone would say that. No one would tell you, can you design something that looks cheaper than its actual price? It's easier said than done. That's the aim for every designer. But because of the method of construction and everything, it actually gives you a lot of gravity. And then we coupled it with a nice La Joux movement, with the personalized rod. So this becomes unattackable from any point of view, from its price point. You might like it or not, but no one can say it's not well done. So I wanted to create that. I wanted to create the 2024 suggestion of what was to aspire to own that object. That was my main inspiration. And then I used this pebble, very soft case and a very a la mode digital display. It's sweeping, but I have to overcome a technical issue because, it's not jumping hour, it's sweeping. So the disc can land sometimes on the 30 minutes on a no man's land, where between 1 and 2 or 3 and 4, there's an empty space and you don't know where you are.
Yeah, you don't know what time it is.
So I had to cut the hourly into squares and put a little reminder of the small number, so it becomes so the design comes to help to overcome something technical. And so great. We created this, and that was the main suggestion. And then created the 2 lines, because the different way to tell the minute track is different. One is more austere, I call it Bauhaus. One is more 1950. I designed the fonts for the number. They're not preset fonts. I designed the fonts of the number, the font of the literature, the font of the Bauhaus and 50 are designed. I also designed the fonts of the logo of the family. So it was an all-round thing.
Okay, that makes sense. So we're talking about this glorious era of beautiful Italian, we'll just call them appliances and different types of things like that were basic and meant for everyday consumption. But I don't know why it was, but probably a cultural thing. They were really nice looking, a lot of them. Really beautiful stuff. And it added a little bit of beauty. And, when I look at some of your other collaborations in design, what I see is someone who very much wants to drape the world around him in beauty. Like, different designers have different things they're trying to do. And what I see time and time again is you look at something, you're like, I know how I could add even more beauty to that, whether it's a texture, or a design, or maybe it's a message that you say, I want to make that message more beautiful than just some standard words and things like that. And so when I look at the watch, that's what I see. I don't see a man trying to be like, this is my perfect tool watch. No. It is meant to say, it tells the time, but it's also there to add a hip sense of design, to make you feel upwardly mobile, to make you feel confident in the world and the times around you. And I saw it on someone's wrist in Geneva. I think I'm going to be reviewing one myself, and I was immediately struck by it. I was like, oh, I knew what it was. I was like, oh, that's cool. It's a fun thing, and I think you did a good job of taking the Gaga Milano case shape. I don't know what they call that, with the sort of big lugs, and making that be a big part of it. It's really cool. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you very much. We needed that transition because I think we were talking about emotion. Ruben is emotionally attached to what made him, and he's been making watches for 25 years. So it would have been, it's a nice nod to that. Then we're going to keep it there as a staple. I coupled it. I tried to harmoniously bend and shape and insert and step. So I insert a bit of Art Deco, 1960s, but then everything was referring back even at the time. The 60s and 70s were referring back to Deco, which was referring back to Art Nouveau, which was referring back to Classicism. So, but try to make it soft and nice. From there, we'll depart to other avenues and routes, and you will see in the next few years. But it's a nice nod. It's nice to nod and to recognize and to bow and to give a wink and a pat to historical references, whether you are recognized or not. I'm a strong believer of respect of what was or what is, of the rules, of the numbers, of the shapes. It's done like that because it's done like that. In tattooing, it's shaded from the bottom up because it's from the bottom up. It's not from the top down. It's because the sun shines from top, and so every Japanese bar, water bar, it starts from dark at the bottom. You can't do otherwise. No, let's respect tradition. Then twist it as you want. But there are rules. There are aesthetic rules. They didn't come to these aesthetic rules overnight. They came because they were shaping, smoothing, shaping, angling. The cherry blossom emblem on every sewer in Tokyo came to that after 200 years of redesigning the same 5-petal little simple flower. And that's perfection. It's the rule. You got to know.
So just thank you for sharing that, but it also sounds like the Gaga Laboratorio, so many syllables for me, brand is going to be taking... Gaga Lab, the Gaga Lab, I like that, is going to be taking a very different direction. That with this first product, you wanted to honor, what the sort of founders had done before and are proud of. But the design direction is more open-ended and free. You're free to do a lot of different things moving forward.
Absolutely. Apart from the obvious declination, but even now the approach we're going to take to special edition, which some retailers or some special projects might require, because that's the world we live in, and it's nice to do it. They have to be significant. They don't have to be just a color change. They have to have a lot of storytelling behind. We have to. What the problem with special edition and the limited editions is that whoever became a slave of it and dwell in thousands of them, they cheapen the regular production. No one wants the regular stuff anymore. There's so many special editions that I want something special for me. So to find the right balance between creating a nice capsule of X amount of watches, but not making your regular production look the little brother who is not as cool as, is very difficult. And if you do thousands of them for anything, from the local tennis club to the biggest retailer in the world, at some point, you confuse the message. People don't know what to get anymore. They keep on expecting the coolest one to be the next one, and no one takes action on the regular production. So everything has to be carefully planned, even the special declination, the color declination. They have to be storytelling, the materials, and then to set down a new roadmap of new references in terms of shapes, cases, complications, etc., etc., etc. So these days, we're forced to use our brain a lot. The market is not a free-for-all as it used to be up until 3-4 years ago. You need to really scratch your brain and your head in the morning and think every step you take. You can do the best you can, then see what the market says.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I have, in a lot of different discussions, talked about the danger of over-relying on limited editions and how what we call the core collection gets ignored. And a lot of brands suffered, as you said, where people were just buying the limited editions. There was like basically no, it wasn't there was nothing wrong with the core collection, but they weren't able to create reasons to buy.
No,
and that was the problem.
Because it's all based on emotions. Again, if you give me the emotion that watch is more special than this watch, and it's more exclusive, and I'm one of the few, I'm never going to look at if I go to Porsche or to B&, and I know that I can get a special one, I'll get a special one. It's a natural thing for me to feel slightly special when I depart with a good chunk of money.
So basically, all the products need to be special.
They all need to be special. I mean, they all need to be special in the same way. It's not that I couldn't find that one, then I got the regular one. Even the regular one, even the core production has to be special, and that's why the special edition cannot be just a special version of that, but it has to have quite significant different traits that are only available to those few who manage to purchase it. Because otherwise it's a better version. It's like when you do a restyling of the car you just bought. You feel like, oh, come on. If I waited another couple of months, I could have had the restyling as well. And you feel cheated, right?
Yeah,
by the brand.
Those are very strong emotions.
So you never buy the latest one, because you always think that the next restyling is going to be even cooler. And so you never buy it.
Which it is. And so they just have the discipline of wait it out longer. Just don't remake it so often.
But you never jump on the wheel. You keep on waiting from the outside, waiting to jump in with the coolest model, which is going to be surpassed by the coolest model again. So
that's another problem. I want to spend a little bit of time talking about tattoos and that world. It's bigger than we can even get into. But one of the things that I've noticed that there hasn't been a lot of, and I think maybe it was Manuel that did the first of them, even though I recommended it longer ago, is to take the watch strap and to use it as another decorative surface. People like tattooed skin, so why not a tattooed leather strap? There's been, again, such a small amount of actually decorating the strap. Do you agree or disagree that this is a ripe area for people to sell straps with artwork to upgrade the look of a watch? And there's so much real estate to have art on there, which is just otherwise a plain color or maybe a texture.
Well, absolutely. I think a watch is made out of a watch and a strap and a tank buckle. That's a watch, in my opinion.
Three different things.
We've witnessed 20 years of black straps on everything. It was very fatiguing. I mean, when we tried with Manuel to tattoo on leather, it was the very first time it was done. And I managed to perfect that technique because it was very difficult. The ink, the link smudges, you have to have the right coating on the leather, the ink stains the leather. It's not like on the skin that you wipe the excess off. A lot of trials and errors. I perfected it there. Then, of course, I did also for Montblanc, for their bags, and I did it for a set of straps for Panerai. It's a very meticulous, long, time-consuming thing. Every stroke has to be carefully planned. You need to regulate the ink flow in order, because if it's too much, it smudges everything. And even at the last stroke, you can ruin that. This is rejection rate. It's very time-consuming. So we did it. It is not possible to industrialize it by hand. You can then use different techniques. Then I agree. In fact, my urge to decorate everything of watch came also on the Bulgari project, where we took that was supposed to be just the case and the bezel and the dial. Sorry. And I said, let's extend it to the bracelet as well. Different technique, is laser. It's got nothing to do with tattooing, but the concept came from those straps I tattooed before, where you start like this and then you keep on rolling and you go around and you go like, oh my God, in every angle, there's a story
one
to tell.
cohesive composition.
So it came from that. And I think it's very important. So the strap, watch brands should give not a huge, but a cool amount of very well selected and curated watch strap options to customers, because a strap can change a watch dramatically. Completely.
Are there, I'll call them manufacturing techniques that are new or on the horizon that will allow for a design to be printed in such a way that's durable for a number of years? Because I think that's what people don't realize is an issue, that if you paint or somehow apply a color, a strap bends and it wears against things, and it would look horrible if it started to wear off. And so nobody would want to have a design that could scrape off easily, essentially. So there's a lot of practical things that are limitation. I'm wondering if there are innovations you know about that are coming.
When we did it, I'll go back to the beginning. The tattoo straps, as age, every now and then I take out that Romain Jerome strap, that watch, and I put it on. It aged exactly like a tattoo would age on a skin. Which is fantastic, which is not necessarily as crisp as the first day, but it patina, because the leather gets a patina on it, also the ink got a patina, and it looks like an old pirate map. It's just so fascinating. It's still crisp in the lines, but it's all so smooth and beautiful. And of course, a leather strap has a shelf life, even a regular strap. At some point, depends how much you wear your watch, it wears out. Bracelet, not as much, but the leather strap, yes. So that's why it was not very viable. If I had to tattoo a strap and then put it out there, it becomes very, very expensive. It becomes a work. But but if you see it in that, because again, we go back to emotion, as something aging with you, patina, it's like the same as having an Hermes bag or, it ages with you. You treat it, of course, you wouldn't, plunge into the ocean night and day with a beautiful strap, like you wouldn't put apples and pears inside an Hermes bag, I suppose. So, it's a different attitude how you use it. New techniques, laser on metal works like you can duplicate portraits. It's
perfect.
It's amazing. We will see so much of it. But then the use of it, but then again, it becomes a technique. What you apply is down to the sensibility and the beauty. We will see some horrendous stuff in there. We will see some stuff.
We already have.
Yeah. You will see, it would be like, engravings, and then you see some stuff engraved, you go like, oh, come on. So it becomes another tool. From the rubber point of view, everything. I just saw the latest report from a fair in China, and the feedback of what's possible to do with rubber is just infinite. It's just infinite.
Right.
It's so cool. And if you think how cool a rubber strap is on some sort of divers, or even, sometimes, I'm not saying classic watches, but, watches with a bit of a body and you attach that for the summer, it's never ending. I think strap could be an incredible, whoever will tackle that in a very cool, systematic, beautiful, tasteful way will get a lot of success and a lot of satisfaction.
But they need someone like you to make the design. Like the whoever figures out the manufacturing and logistics ultimately needs someone to say this is pretty or not pretty. And that's what always happens. Designers are not the manufacturing nerds, and the manufacturing nerds think they know design when they never do. No. They never do.
I saw this feedback and I saw these rubber straps. I'm looking just at the techniques, and I'm just looking at what the texture they come up with. The overall thing, a monstrosity. But the textures and things.
The potential.
Oh my God! If you had a cool design on that, it could be amazing. So as food for thoughts, I would love to dwell on something like that, but we would need a plan, we need an endorsement and an appointment.
Yeah. So what can the watch industry learn from the tattoo industry? I know it's less of an industry in that sense because it's a lot of individuals. But I think the tattoo industry over the last 15 or 20 years has had a really good run. It's been very profitable for a lot of people. What can the watch industry fundamentally learn from that?
Well, I'll give you a parallel. It's what, even if they didn't want, the independents have done from the trip they took from being completely unknown and just for a very few and being sold at 50 off because they had to pay the rent to become the watches to have more than any other brand. It's the one-to-one. It's being closer to what people want instead of what market wants. It's being closer to the sensibility of your customer. And if you go and talk to Kari, or if you go talk to Max, or whether they do a piece unique for you or not, but you feel closer to that thing, feel more special. Tattooing is a one-to-one thing. You can't delegate it. You can't get the factory guy to do it. And so it becomes so personal. Now, I don't expect the personal, like an Eric Graves or a one-off Dufour for everyone who wants to watch. But that closer range of action with the final wrist proved to be very successful for the independent. The big brand have numbers in mind. I'm not criticizing. They still do a credible job. You can't delegate to your shop assistant down in Bond Street to have that thing. At the end of the day, he's going home at 6 o'clock. It's not the same thing.
You're right. The ability for the customer to feel, I guess you could say, flattered and serviced by the artists themselves, to have the work done on them. We like handmade watches because they're handmade. It's another level to meet the person that handmade it. And to have them do something special for you takes you to yet another level. On a Lange
factory trip, when you meet the guy who engraved your balance cock, even though if it's the Lange is a brand, a big brand, right? They don't have to meet everyone buys a Lange watch. That's special. Not everybody has to go on a Lange trip, but all I'm saying is, good evening, sir, Saint Martini. And then you go like, I feel like the king of this place. I'll get two.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can't translate exactly that. But all I'm saying is, that is the core, especially today where every industry suffers, especially the one that we're talking about, because, the world situation, being cuddled in the proper way, not just with an email or something. It's very important. And that could be the direct parallel that I see.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and that's a great response. You're obviously a fan of messaging, and I'm guessing you're a fan of vintage watch ads. Actually, right now, we're currently running this little promotion with the Watch Library. We're asking people to choose some of their favorite watch ads over the last 100 years, and as a result of that, I've been looking at a lot of them. I'm wondering, what would you say as advice to the watch industry to get them not to do something new, but just to make cool ads like they used to? They don't have to look the same, but they love making their old watches, yet they forget that those old watches had cool ad campaigns too.
Fantastic.
Why don't they do? What advice can you give them to make them feel comfortable that this is a good risk, to not just make your old watches, but also do that advertising thing you used to do as well?
Do you know, another thing springs to mind. One other big thing in the world now is cigars. But look at the cigar boxes. They're bare wooden boxes. Back in the day, cigar art was like, biggest font of inspiration. Biggest font, all the ephemeral lettering. They don't do it anymore. Same, we don't use posters and that size thing as we use in the past, because there's no more use for advertising posters and advertising campaigns on billboards. But we have Instagram and Pinterest, which are today's billboards and walls. So the surface changed, the where they're displayed changed, but nothing can stop from conveying again those messages with incredible graphics and incredible visuals. So, and I'm sure as it worked back in the days, human being is basically the same. So why couldn't it work today? And I'm a big fan of posters and doing poster and graphic illustration, as I do for many brands. And I want them to use them in a digital world that we're now. Same concept. It's different. It's not more glued on a wall, but it's on the phone. But do it. Use it. It's cool. Make that monogram. Make it pop. Make it there. People will remember it. I think it's essential. These days they go back in the 60s and get that brutalist watch. They go back in the 20s and get that beautiful tuxedo and black tie watch. Couple it with a fantastic new, a picture, an image and illustration. It will be fantastic. People will be very happy to see that.
You hear that, watch brands? Mo Coppoletta himself said, do it. So now you have to.
Well, I hope so.
We're out of time, Mo, but I'm going to have you come back because we have so much more to talk about. I just want to have everyone go to the CoppolettaDesigns.com website. But is there any other places on the internet that you'd like to draw people's attention to or where they can learn more about you?
Well, my site is pretty new and there's a lot. I'm not a minimalist guy and I'm not, I tried to curate that as much as I could, but there's a lot to take in. But you can stay on the surface and just see the selected projects. But if you want to dwell into all the project that's been done throughout the years, forms, shapes, lettering, fonts, this, that, there's a lot. Because I can't keep it very minimal. I'm a maximal guy.
Good.
I've got my Instagrams, but I think the site is a pretty good, if you go through all of it between videos and presentations. And I want to attract also the attention also to the Gaga Laboratorio's new website, which I curated as well, because it's very cool. That's the new video that we've done with Alessandro Ristori, our superstar ambassador. And that is also cool too. It takes you back where to a place and a time where cinematography was used in advertising up until the 80s, the old Levi's ads and all those beautiful ads of the past. So we took that and we tried to make these 2 minutes of romanticism and explanation of what the contemporary take on La Dolce Vita could be. It's I like it. It's a suggestion that I like. I dwell in that. So there you go.
Everyone's certainly going to check it out. This has been the aBlogtoWatch Superlative Podcast interview with Mo Coppoletta. Mo, thank you so much.
Thank you very much for asking me. It's been an honor.